Good evening to you both, and let's begin with controversial but promised legislation involving addictions treatment.
If you're of sound mind, able to make your own independent decisions, you have the right to choose your medical intervention. If you're causing harm to yourself or others, then we're going to try this different pathway.
Yeah, the Smith government introducing the Compassionate Intervention Act legislation that will make addictions treatment mandatory if a person poses a risk to themselves or others. A family member, medical professional, or police officer will need to apply on their behalf. Laura, this is follow through on an election promise. It pertains to the placement of both adults and youth into involuntary addiction treatment. Given this has been in development for some time, what note do you feel the government is now striking with introduction of this legislation?
Well, as you said, they're obviously following through on what they have promised, despite there's been lots of controversy about it. And it's the kind of policy that there will always be lots of controversy about. The one thing that makes me a little bit hesitant is that I know they are creating extra beds for this program, but there has been issues with people accessing any kind of counseling in a timely manner in Alberta. And so I'm wondering if by adding on this additional load, that may trickle down and other people may have even more problems accessing it. But again, no surprise. We said we're going to do it. We're doing it.
Well, Lise, how do you feel this will change the addictions treatment dynamic in our province, even the perception of that dynamic?
Well, we're the first province to go in this direction, although some other provinces are looking at this model. It's very, very heavy-handed. To take away someone's liberty to force medical treatment is a really profound violation of bodily autonomy and personal integrity. And this is being done, it's not quite clear yet what procedural safeguards someone would have who found themselves involuntarily detained under this act. But I mean, the constitutional experts are very clear that this is a violation of the charter, and it's on the basis of very mixed evidence as well. I don't feel good about this, and I worry that the kind of people who are going to be caught up in it are going to be disproportionately Indigenous.
Laura, given Alberta is leading the way here, what degree of scrutiny do you see there being on the province where rollout and long-term success are concerned, even from a political standpoint?
I wish I could say there would be a high degree of scrutiny, but there doesn't seem to be a lot of scrutiny on a lot of things that this government is doing, and a lot of things, that AHS is doing, which has led to some other issues within AHS. My fear is that it is not going to be out, sunlight is the best disinfectant. I'm not sure that that's going to happen. I do agree with Lise saying that, this will catch up a lot of vulnerable people. The evidence is mixed. I spent all morning sort of looking to see what I could find. Evidence is mixed. The one thing Danielle Smith said is, well, we don't know, it's a bad idea, so let's give it a shot. I'm not sure that's the strongest way to be making a policy like this.
Lise, what do you feel Albertans should expect in terms of oversight, evaluation, accountability?
Well, there should be very, very strict oversight. The premier promised to, as this new approach is tried, that it would be studied to ensure that it is effective. But we're experimenting in a very heavy-handed way with the lives of people, and I'm not really sure that's appropriate. I think that if you're going to profoundly interfere with someone's civil liberties, you should have very good evidence before you proceed with a model like this. I do understand, the families who have tried everything, and the frustration and the worry, and it's a terrible situation, but this is something that could well make it worse. I mean, there are some studies that show that people become unused to drugs. Obviously, they're going through detox, but that the first thing they do when they're released, because they don't have proper follow-up, then is they use again, and there's a high rate of overdose. So we're experimenting with people's lives, I think.
Well, and
And
there is.
I just like to jump in and say, just really briefly, I think that Lisa's point of the follow-up is actually critical. And if there isn't robust follow-up, then we've got a real problem on our hands.
Well, there's certainly talk there may well be charter challenges. Okay, next up, Alberta is now without a top doctor.
This government's consistent interference and gag orders have been restricting the CMOH office from doing their important work.
The opposition raising concerns after it came to light that Dr. Mark Joffe's contract as Alberta's Chief Medical Officer of Health ended Monday, and it's not yet clear if the government declined to renew it or if he quit. And it comes at a time when measles cases are on the rise in Alberta. Lise, Alberta Health issued a statement saying an interim CMOH is expected to be named shortly. What do you make of the province being without a top doctor at this point in time?
Well, I mean, first of all, people are saying, how would we notice? Because this chief medical officer has been so invisible for almost his entire term. But we are in the middle of a measles outbreak. I think it's arcing upward in a straight line at this moment. There are over 800 cases in Ontario. We could be at that point in a very short period of time. And, the chief medical officer on Friday issued a press release where he was advising parents to get their children immunized. And it really does make you wonder about him being him disappearing from his role on Monday. So I don't know whether those two things are connected, but I would think there's a likelihood that they are. This is a government that has pandered to anti-vaxxers. Now we are in, facing a measles outbreak, which is very, very serious because it's so contagious.
Laura, reporters attempted to ask the health minister about this development at the legislature on Tuesday. Adriana Lagrange, though, declined to stop. What kind of message do you see being sent here where continuity of public health leadership is concerned?
I think the message is, let's just, if we don't talk about it, it'll just go away. If you look back to COVID, Dina Hinshaw, she started doing regular updates. At the beginning, she was just lauded as an absolute hero. By the end, she was completely vilified. I think that is probably a major reason why we haven't heard a lot from this Chief Medical Officer of Health. And it is really concerning. This is an outbreak. And because we haven't had measles around for so long, people forget that it can be a very serious disease. It's not, you hear people say, oh, I got it, in the 70s and I'm fine. Well, we can't just treat it like that anymore. And so the fact that nothing is being said, I think really sends the message that we're just going to hope this goes away on its own.
We heard from Dominic Carty, leader of the upstart Canadian Future Party, off the top this evening. Laura, only 19 candidates nationwide, but what do you make of nearly a third of those candidates running here in Alberta? What do you think that speaks to?
I think it speaks to the fact that Albertans actually love to start up new parties and see what's going to come of them. I'm old enough where I remember two men walking into our radio station in the 1980s and my news director saying, this is Preston Manning, this is Stephen Harper, go interview them, they have an idea about a new party. And, that worked out okay. But Albertans have a tendency to want to push against the envelope and try to see if they can make some kind of difference with varying amounts of success. But the fact that a third of them are coming from here does not surprise me at all. We are eternally optimistic.
Lise, what do you make of the message Dominic Carty and the Canadian Future Party bring to this election? And to what degree do you see it resonating with voters here in our province?
Well, I think when this party formed, it was in a context of polarized politics. Many people would say that the Liberal Party had moved too far to the left and the Conservative Party had moved too far to the right. So a centrist party, a new centrist party made some sense. But I think in the context of this election, especially in the context in which it's unfolding, and with a new Liberal leader who's moving the party much more to the center, there doesn't seem to be a rationale for this party anymore. But in Alberta, politics remain very polarized. So perhaps that is why the party has decided to invest so much of its resources in this election in Alberta and taking up the message of Western alienation. I was on a primetime panel in the fall with Mr. Carty, and I don't remember him talking about Western alienation then.
Laura, surprised that he would wind down the campaign out here in Alberta? He's out in the Maritimes.
Oh, yeah, again, not in the least. And when I started researching the party and realized just how strong this Alberta component is, I had to do quite a bit of research. But, there is actually a lot of commonality between some of the Atlantic provinces that also feel alienated from the central Canada and Alberta. I do have to say that in the course of my research, I went on every party's website, and this future party is the only one that actually has a platform published. And I found that very interesting. The Liberal Party has lots of, look at our media stuff. The Conservatives and the NDP have, these are our policies. I have been concerned about this being a platform-less election. So, yeah, they're not going to get in more than likely. But even the fact that they are bringing things out that aren't being talked about, I think is really healthy for our democracy.
So, Lise, how much of a role do you see for the Canadian Future Party beyond the election? Is there a future for the Future Party?
I think it really depends, Michael, on what happens in the world and in Canadian politics. And in this context that we're in now, I don't see much of a role for the Canadian Future Party. I don't think they'll get any of their candidates selected. If they do, then perhaps that could be a sign that there might be a role for them, but I'm not sure. And on the point of Atlantic Canada, as a Maritimer, I have to say that politics there and here are quite different, and no one in the Atlantic provinces is talking about separation if the election doesn't go their way.
All right, Laura, French language debate in Montreal this evening, English tomorrow. How significant a point in the election do you expect these two leadership showdowns to be?
Well, I'm looking forward to it, and I really find it quite amusing that only in Canada would we move the debate to avoid a hockey a hockey game. I really think that as kind of a political nerd that I watch a lot of debates. I don't know if a lot of other people actually do, or whether they will be fine to watch the news and see, what a reporter decides will be clipped. If I had my way, I'd say everybody should watch it, but I'm also a realist. And lots of people are talking a whole lot more about hockey than they are about debate.
Well, that rings true for sure. Well, Lise, last 30 seconds to you then. How much pressure on the shoulders now of Pierre Poilievre and Mark Carney?
Well, I'm sure that they're both feeling a lot of pressure, particularly about the French language debate tonight. But yes, I mean, I agree, though, with Laura. I think that most people don't watch debates anymore, even though people like us do. And the other thing that I would say is that the parties are just going to use sound bites on their social media. So, I mean, I'm really not sure. But I have to say, on the hockey thing, it makes me angry because, of course, Franco-Albertans are still at work at 4 o'clock this afternoon, right? So
enough.
it's You know, I don't know about, you know.
All right. We're out of time. We have to leave it there. Good to see you both. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Take care.